When I sat with Trish and Lita, and it was also Mickie James too,
Mm-hmm.
after it was all over, I basically worked the rest of the day at that Comic-Con because I was Alabama Comic-Con. And then after I got home, I just cried.
The wrestling podcast community has truly been a blessing. Y'all may have heard me say that time and time again. Today's episode features one of my favorite people, and that is the one and only Miss Stephanie Hardy. Now, Stephanie and I met somewhere during the pandemic when she started creating content. I came across it and enjoyed her show, always enjoyed her takes. She came on my show, Wrestling for the Culture, which is on the Wrestling Realm channel. And we talked about her broadcasting career and how she got started. Well, today I wanted to introduce her to the Breaking Through Glass Ceilings audience because Stephanie is a trained vocalist. And while she doesn't sing anymore, she's put that energy into her current craft of broadcasting and podcasting. So, ladies and gentlemen, get ready for my conversation with the host of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, the one and only Miss Stephanie Hardy. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, I have one of my favorite people in the professional wrestling community, the professional wrestling media podcast community. That is the one and only Miss Stephanie Hardy, but y'all can call her Queen Steph Hardy. Steph, how you feeling today?
I'm doing good. I'm so happy to be on here with you and someone who I just love and admire so very much. Like, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for coming on. Before we get started, we've been, friends for a while now. And I've been, a fan of yours. And the thing that I always admire, which we'll get into, is just, a lot of times you hold it down doing a solo podcast, but it doesn't feel like, okay, this person's going on a monotone voice. Like the way your energy is throughout the whole show is amazing. So I'm excited to talk to you today and talk about that.
Yeah, I'm so happy like to be on here and actually talk about it. And thank you for the compliment of that. Cause sometimes I really be like, people really like to listen to me. Like, okay, well, that's cool. So yeah, I'm glad that you actually enjoy the Hardy Wrestling podcast. So thank you so much for supporting it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Before we get started, how you feeling? How are you feeling mentally?
Well, mentally, I'm feeling okay. I've had a pretty good day so far because, like I said earlier, it's Wednesday. So we're just, trugging along and it's March and spring, it's happening. And I'm really excited about that because I hate cold weather. But I'm doing good. Like, I'm happy. It feels like there's a newer season coming into play here. So I'm feeling pretty great.
Now, you said you hate cold weather. Stephanie, you're
Yes.
down in Alabama, right? How cold does it get there?
Well, sometimes, it varies. Sometimes the lower it gets, sometimes it gets as low as 41. But this past Christmas, it did get like really low, like freezing, like below average freezing. And
Mm-hmm.
that was very surprising for us. But we had the heat on blast and everything. So we were pretty good in terms of the heat, in our house. And that's usually how cold it kind of gets, but sometimes it gets as low as maybe 40 or 50 at the most. If it's just not like a weird special little freeze weather thing happening across the country. So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So, Stephanie, now
Mhm.
I'm just saying, like, you talking 40s is cold now. Here in Baltimore, like I'm looking at my watch right now and it says 43, and that's cool. But there's been some mornings I woke up and looked at my watch, it said 9 degrees, 10 degrees.
Oh.
Now, yeah. And I'll give a shout out to one of my best friends, Andrea. She lives in Mobile, Alabama, or outside of Mobile, and she always talk about, oh, I want some snow. I wanted the snow. I wanted to be freezing. I'm like, are you sure? Like, now, mind you, conveniently, she usually only comes to Baltimore during the summer, give or take. Last time
Mhm.
was in the summer, so it's different. But have you, like, I know you recently went to New York City. Well, last year, Black Wrestlfest, right? Have you
Yes.
been up there during the wintertime yet?
I was up there No, I haven't been during the winter time. I was up there in October, so that was like towards the
Right.
fall.
Hmm.
Cuz I went there for New York Comic-Con with Katrina, shout out to In Cat We Trust, for her
Hmm.
Women of Color in Wrestling panel. I was up there and it was in October. So that was basically, summerish, fallish. So in a
That was a
sense,
warm weekend though, because
that
I
was a
was
warm
there.
weekend.
I think we just missed each other. You left Sunday.
I left that
See,
Sunday.
and I went up there that Sunday because that was the weekend of Extreme Rules, and then we had Raw
Yes.
in Brooklyn, and I had to work. We was interviewing Shawn Michaels,
Mhm.
so I I was up there that Sunday and Monday, and came back that Tuesday. So but I remember that weekend was pretty mild compared to where it is now.
Oh yeah. So I've never really been up north during the cold, and I am afraid to because
Hmm.
I just cannot stand cold weather. So I mean, I just thrive in sunshine and warmth.
Likewise, likewise. I hate the cold with a passion. I'm born in August, so um,
Oh,
but yeah,
cool. I
that's
was born in September.
right. Which day?
September the 4th.
The 4th. That's my sister's birthday as well, my older sister.
Oh, cool. That's
And her wedding
amazing.
anniversary.
Oh, that's
Yep.
cool too.
Yeah,
Oh,
so that's a great day.
it
Um,
is.
but we, like I said, we met through the wrestling community, and I want to ask you, when did you first become a wrestling fan, and how did you know that you wanted to take that and use it career-wise as far as the broadcast field is concerned?
Well, I became a wrestling fan when I was 4 years old because my dad watched it. He's been, a wrestling fan his whole life. And he got it from my grandmother, who was also a wrestling fan too. Like she used to sneak out of church to go to wrestling shows in Birmingham. So it's been like a family, like a generational thing. So I started watching it around almost towards the end of the Attitude Era.
Mhm.
Um, and I just loved it ever since. I never stopped watching it. Like even when I was in college, I still tried to watch it as much as I possibly could, even if it wasn't on the regular. Because when you're in the thick of trying to get that degree, you really don't have
Yeah.
that much time to look at it. But I was still doing it even then. It's always been something that's been near and dear to my heart, due to the bonding with my family and just the excitement of it and just yelling at your favorite person and yelling at the person that you don't like. Like I just loved it. And I really didn't think to start using wrestling towards a broadcasting career until 2020 because basically I tried to pursue like a little bit of a music career because I also sing too. So I was just like, you know what, I'm going to try and do this, but then when that didn't necessarily work out after I graduated from college, I was just working, as much as I could, of course, to sustain myself as a human being. But at the same time, I was just, always involved online when it came to wrestling with the internet wrestling community. And when I had decided that I was going to, start my podcast, I was just like, these apps are here on my phone. So let me just, try it. And I had Anchor and I had another app on there. So I was just like, you know what, maybe I should just try it. And it was the weekend of the Royal Rumble in 2020 when I decided to just sort of push forward and just try it on a whim. So this wasn't anything I went to school for, or anything I was trained for. I just did it. And I decided I was going to name it the Hardy Wrestling Podcast because my last name really is after the Hardy Boys, low key. So that's really is my family name. So I was just like, okay, let me just name it after, this. And I just went forward with it. And the more I did it, the more I started to organize how it was going to be. And I've been doing it ever since. And this was before the pandemic. So it was pretty interesting to say the least. But I really wouldn't have had it any other way. I love what I do and I love using my voice in a new way. So it's wonderful.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, what was your major in college?
I'm a voice major. So
Okay.
basically, I'm a classically trained soprano. So that's what I studied in school. But then also, I was interested in a lot of different things socially too, when it comes to social justice and also feminism and lots of stuff like that. I took classes in that as well.
Mhm.
So I try to like put a lot of what I know with that and also with pop culture into what I know with wrestling as well. So I was interested in a lot of different things as a younger person. So I just kind of bring all of my life experience into the podcasting area. But yeah, I was a voice major. I can sing down, but it just didn't necessarily work out as well or as hope as much as I thought it would. But it's okay. Stuff happens for a reason.
Now, I gotta ask you this before we move on, because if the opportunity came, we're in this community, and one thing I noticed about the wrestling community that you have people like you and others who do so much different things, right?
Mhm.
Let's just say, one of your favorites asked you, "Hey, can you sing my entrance music?" Would you turn it down?
No. No, I wouldn't turn it down because I've actually done something just like that. Tasha Steeles from Impact Wrestling had a segment on women's wrestling talk on the show of Creep Squad with Lola Brick and Faye Jackson.
Hmm.
And she had a segment on the show called Petty Moments with Petty Steeles. And TK Trinidad, shout out to her, our CEO of Women's Wrestling Talk, asked one of us to sing the song, and I volunteered to do it, and I sang it, and she really, liked it. So if the opportunity arose, if anybody else were to ask me to sing a theme, I would be happy to do it. Like that would be fun.
So the emails are open, and you will do business.
Yes, I'll do business.
So
I will use my voice, like regardless.
so
Just if you want to.
podcasters out there, Stephanie Hardy, y'all pay her, y'all sit there, talk with her. Y'all need some, entrance music, or you need some intro music for your shows. Hit up Stephanie Hardy. That's exciting. That's definitely exciting to hear. I One of the things I forgot to bring up when you had the Wrestling Realm on the Hardy Wrestling podcast was your anchor ad read. It
Yes.
is the most entertaining that I've ever heard. And I was like, I listened to so I listened to the Jabba Tears episode because I'm like,
Mhm.
I listen to everybody's episode in order, right? And
Mhm.
I listened to the Jabba Tears episode, and I hear the intro, and I was like, oh man, I meant to say something because before our episode, I didn't catch the Black Wrestling one live, so I caught it in replay.
Mhm.
And it was another show you had did, just you. So, and I always meant to bring that up to tell you like how entertaining. Like a lot of us use Anchor, we've heard the ad or some way, shape, or form. But when I heard yours, I said, that's creative. I wanted to give you your flowers as far as that was concerned.
Thank you. Thank you. I try my best to like keep it as exciting as possible because you it's easy for a lot of different podcasts to have the same ad playing over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And my thing for my show that I want to always put out there is the fact that it is always evolving with the times, are always evolving, and you'll never get the same thing. So even with the ad, like I never want to just leave it the same way. So I just think of different ways to do it. And this time it turns out to be in the form of a story or the form of a fairy tale. Because I loved hearing fairy tales growing up and stuff like that. So I just want to make it interesting, like the same way any commercial you hear on the radio or any commercial you see on TV would be
Mm-hmm.
interesting. So I'm glad you actually, listen to that and actually like it because for all I know, you could fast forward through it and, just go straight to the show. So I'm actually glad you like it.
Look, we trying to get these ad dollars.
Yeah.
Every penny CRM, which I don't even know how that works or explain it. Everything makes sense, and so every point counts. That's the part I'm trying to make. Every dollar, every cent count. So
Hmm.
I'm super, super excited for you and everything that you're doing. But could you have imagined when you first started, the Hardy Wrestling Podcast would be the brand that it is today?
No. Literally no. Not at all, cuz it's like I tell people a lot of the time. It's like when I started listening to wrestling podcasts say around 2012, it would always the podcasting world, like outside of even outside of wrestling, is full of people who you already know, who already have sort of like their built-in fan bases. Like Chris Jericho with his Talk is Jericho podcast. Like that was the first wrestling podcast I ever heard. And I was
Mm-hmm.
just like, these are people who really know what they're doing because they spent time in the business. Like he is a veteran out here in these wrestling streets. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of like I didn't think anybody would listen to me like that outside of people who love me, like my family, my friends, my boyfriend. So the idea that people actually listen to me and actually want to know what I have to say about certain things in wrestling, it humbles me and it makes me feel really honored. And I try to like take care of my voice and also take care of others, and also with the subjects that I talk about on my show, because it could all just melt away at some point, but I'm just really grateful regardless. I try to go into it with a grateful mindset because I'm just an ordinary person just trying to live my best life every day. Like I'm a black girl from Birmingham, Alabama. Like I'm the person who you least expect to be a wrestling fan. So the
Mm-hmm.
idea that people actively have listened to me since, ever since I was just doing it on audio, and it is where it is now, where people want to listen to me and people, you know, are interested in the brand and in the show and in me. It never stops being amazing to me. Like seriously, it's crazy.
Yeah. Now, when you think about just what the wrestling community has done for you, I should say, excuse me, when you think about what wrestling has done for you, you've had an opportunity to speak with some of your favorites, and some of the people who, like, I learned a lot about Alabama wrestling because of you, and like you spoke with Teddy Long, being on the same stage with Trish and Lita. What's been like, what would you say, like, after those moments, like, how did you decompress? Like, when did it hit you like, wow, this really happened?
When I sat with Trish and Lita, and it was also Mickie James too,
Mm-hmm.
after it was all over, I basically worked the rest of the day at that Comic Con because that was Alabama Comic Con. And then after I got home, I just cried. I just cried because it's like you said, like these are my heroes. But initially, like I just cried for the part of me that actively watched these women and also watched people like Teddy Long on television. Like that's the little part of me that was at my grandma's house watching Teddy Long, put people in tag team matches or put people against the Undertaker before I even knew he was from Birmingham. Like that little girl in me still lives. So the idea that these people are actually, willing to give me their time and actually wanted to talk to me. And even with Trish and Lita and Mickie, who were just on television, like Mickie is still a champion, and you have Lita, who is one half of the women's tag team champions in WWE with Becky Lynch. And you have Trish, who's also in WrestleMania this year, who I saw, at WrestleMania 27 in Atlanta years ago when I was 17. Before I went to college. It just blows my mind. And I just cried about it because who am I?
Mm-hmm.
To talk to these people. Like, of course, I don't have really like, I try not to have low self esteem, but it's like I said earlier, I'm just an ordinary girl, I'm just a person trying to figure out, what my purpose is on this planet. And the fact that they want to talk to me and actually gave me encouragement, and seek to want to see you grow. Like it's a beautiful experience, and I just cried afterward because the little girl in me just still lives, and I remember just seeing them on my television, like, and they want to talk to me. Like what? Like it's insane. And I'm just really grateful, and I just cry all the time. I'm a cry baby.
And it's nothing wrong with it. I've definitely had my moments, and a lot of times people don't think, oh, men shouldn't cry. No, bull crap.
No, that's not true.
Yeah, like my dad isn't much of a crier, but he never like told me not to, if that makes any sense. You know,
Mhm.
What up? It's your boy Blue Magic, owner of For Your Wear and one half of the Mixed Tag Show. Now, I know you've seen the announcements from some of your favorite podcasters and wrestlers. I've decided to expand my business to become a vendor so that people from the wrestling community have a better way to communicate with some of their favorites. So check out foryourwear.com and see if your favorite podcaster or wrestler has partnered up with me. If not, let them know that they should. Also, if you're looking for a vendor for your merchandise, reach out to me at Blue Magic Grind, spell how it's sound on Twitter or Instagram, or at For Your Wear, FORURWEAR, on Twitter and on Instagram. Shout out to Brian H. Waters and Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. Their merchandise are already up, and they're one of the first one that's supported, so go support them. All right? Peace.
when you, so, you know, when I saw the clip and like the video and the photos like of you on stage, I marked out because it was you connect with people, and we all like love the same thing. I know people on the wrestling side, they probably know what quote I'm about to say. But people who not on the wrestling side, I've always said, where was y'all when I was growing up, right? Where was the Stephanie Hardys? Where was the wrestling realm, those wrestling girls, the black wrestlers, the Jobber Tears, the Public Enemies, everybody? So many podcasts, right? The big gold belts, even though there's so many of us. And the reason why I say that is because I'm like, I had just a few friends who liked it, but man, I was getting made fun of this shit all the time. Like, oh, you shouldn't watch that. You know, so like when I see my peers and friends being able to be in these spaces, you know, it's something that makes me happy. We got a chance to meet in person at Black Wrestlfest. And so let me tell you, I'm gonna put this out there. We was getting our banners together and we was getting everything and like, okay, we gotta have this, we gotta have that. And I remember thinking, Stephanie Hardy's gonna be there. She's going to bring it. She's gonna have her professional setup, she's gonna have her backdrop, she's gonna have her mics, she's gonna have everything. And I remember thinking that because it was it may have been one of the Comic Cons you went to or something you went to,
Mhm.
and I remember you taking a picture of it. And I said, that is the standard right there. What did
Oh.
what did it mean? Because and then like you got to New York the day before I did, and I remember seeing you, and it was so funny because I had been to New York once before then, like
Mhm.
to actually be in the city. No, twice to actually like, be in the city. Now I've been there like more than times I can count. But so when I saw you there and you was taking all the photos and you was like, I done made it to NYC. I thought it was the coolest thing. But what did it mean for you personally to be in New York for a black wrestling convention?
It meant the world to me because what's so funny is that down here in Birmingham, since Birmingham was like a staple for the civil rights movement, like Juneteenth, is continuously a huge deal down here. But in
Mhm.
my mind, I was just thinking, like, what am I gonna do, for the brand for Juneteenth at that time? Like, am I gonna do anything for the city? And sometimes it's a little bit hard because you don't know exactly when the city of Birmingham is gonna start, their preparations for things. So I was just like, okay, so I want to do something for Juneteenth. I'm a black owned business. What can I do? And then when I saw the announcement on social media that there was going to be a Black Wrestlefest, I was like, okay, that looks amazing. And then when it was in Brooklyn, when I heard it was in Brooklyn, I was like, okay, I've never been to New York. But I had seen everything that Jobber Tears had done, with their Jobber Slam event, with so many other things that they're involved with Battle Club Pro. And
Mhm.
I just remember feeling like I would love to go up there, but I just didn't know exactly how it was going to happen because I had never traveled that far on my own before. So I was just like, how am I going to do this? But once I put my head together, with my boyfriend, who's very supportive and loving when it comes to everything that I try to do in wrestling,
Shout out
we
to
put our,
him.
yes, please shout out to him. Like, he's amazing. When we put our heads together, we put everything together, and I was just like, okay, we're going to do this. I went and it was so beautiful to be there because everybody was so welcoming. Danielle and Ebony and Janelle from HR, they were all so helpful because that was my first time in New York ever in my entire
Mm-hmm.
life. So I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. Me finding my way around and just them wanting to be there and just help me however I needed. Like they were there for me. And it was just so wonderful to be there and to see everyone who I had seen like in video clips and listened to all the time. Like it was just insane to actually be in the same room with these people and that they were so welcoming. And then right next to me at the table next to me was Katrina from In Cat We Trust, because we're
Mm-hmm.
both hosts for Women's Wrestling Talk. And she was representing at Black Wrestlfest, for that brand. And we were right next to each other. So of course she was there to help me as well. So it felt like a family affair. Like even though I was in a brand new place, I still felt like I was at home. And it was so beautiful, like seeing you guys with y'all set up, with the wrestling realm. And I was like, oh my God, they look so official. And everyone else, it was just so beautiful. And for that to be the first time it happened, so much went down and so much was learned. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful event to be a part of on Juneteenth weekend. And just with all the people that I met and interviewed, like it was so beautiful. Like if I could have that every day, I would be
Mm-hmm.
so happy. Like it was a beautiful time. I love
It's
it.
it's definitely one of those weekends. Like if you said it best, every day, you could just pause. I remember even at the after party, I was like, man, I knew we was going back home the same night. And the original plan was to leave at like 7 to 8. If we ain't leave till like 10:30. Um, and I was just like, first of all, I'm not doing that drive again. That drive up to New York and down in the same day from Baltimore. It's
Oh
three
my
hours, but
goodness.
it's a rough 3 hours because you figured like even you had fun, so you up all day, and then. But I mean, you hit it right on the head to see everybody, and like I know for Dwayne and that was his first time meeting like the Jobber-teers and almost everybody except Doc and Corey. But and Hugh for his first time meeting some of them for the ones that didn't come to DC earlier that year. So it's really cool to see this community support everybody, and we all rally around each other. You know what I mean? And I always tell them up in New York, they get mad when I say this, but I told them on multiple occasions, I said, y'all have like a Southern hospitality, right? And they was like, no, we don't. No. I said, no. I said, because as many times as I've gone up there for like work or, working with Mr. PWI 500, Jay Bougie, there's always this warm feeling like, and I was even told like, we got you family. It's like, yeah, you was affiliated, you in the community, but no, you amongst us. And I said, y'all gotta go with Southern hospitality. Embrace it. It's cool. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that was beautiful. As someone who's from the actual South, like it's really amazing. Like that was one of the best parts about being up there and
Hmm.
meeting them. Like they were so welcoming to me. Like the amount of times I have heard that I'm an honorary New Yorker now since I've been up there. Like
Hmm.
I went up there 3 times last year. It's just like amazing. Like I can't even believe it. Like seriously, me, like you're kidding. But yeah, it's amazing. They should embrace that hospitality, but probably call it, something else. If they don't if they feel a way about the Southern hospitality part, maybe they could just call it New Yorker hospitality. Just, or make it
Exactly.
sound tougher or something. I don't know. But either way, they were just really amazing to me. And I just can't wait to go back. Like
Yeah.
it's wonderful.
So one of the things you do also is women's wrestling talk.
Yeah.
And it's always good to see. I brought this up on the other show, on the collaboration show with the Hardy Wrestling Podcast and the Wrestling Realm, and bring it up again. It was your tweet that allowed me to call my sister Amber Rodriguez, and I remember her being in tears that night because when you tweeted, because y'all get wild sooner than we do on the East Coast.
Hmm.
So when I was at Battle Club Pro, one of my New York trips, and I remember I stepped outside. No, I was talking to Ciendor, and I said, "Oh my gosh, Amber's show is here." I said, "Stephanie Hardy just tweeted this." And so I remember I walked outside and I called Amber. I said, "I just sent you a tweet. You and my niece are on national TV. This is amazing." And I said, all the hard work, everything that you went through. And, I remember she said, "Oh, Stephanie tweeted. Oh, I love her." And, like everybody, a huge fan of yours. And, I know like you've been working with, you've been doing some commentating and you've been working with Women's Wrestling Talk. How did those opportunities come about?
Okay, I'm going to talk about both, but I'm going to talk about Women's Wrestling Talk first. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, what had happened was I knew of TK Trinidad and of Emily May and Sarah the Rebel from watching them on AfterBuzz TV. And I used to watch them when I was in college. So I was just like, okay, I would watch them talk about and recap all the wrestling shows because like I said, it's hard to watch when you're in school.
Mm-hmm.
So when I started my podcast in 2020, I was maybe 6 or 8 months in, and then I saw on Women's Wrestling Talk they had posted that they were looking for personalities, to round out more of the brand itself, with more personalities. And I was just like, okay, well, maybe I should try. And so I, messaged them or DM'd them like they asked. And then Sarah responded and she was like, okay, can you send me some of your clips and stuff? And I sent them clips about any clips that I have about women's wrestling and also men's wrestling too, because I talk about it all. So I sent it to them and I wasn't sure if they were gonna, want me because I had no previous on camera work, experience like at that point. I was just doing audio. So I was like, I don't know if they're gonna, accept me. But they did. And I was just like, okay, so here we go. And I learned so much from those women,
Mm-hmm.
just from doing and also from them talking me through everything that I was able to apply to my own show and also to my own skills. And I'm just so grateful to them, like through TK, who is a legend in the business, even though she'll feel weird about me saying that. She's a legend to
I
me.
agree.
Um,
I co-sign.
Yes, she's a legend to me, like through all of like everything she's taught me, like through hosting and asking questions, in say like maybe 12 or 15-minute interviews or learning how to write, like you would for a news website. Like I've taken so many of those skills and just applied it to that brand and my own brand to the point to where it makes me think of how I can expand so much. And I've learned so much from them, from being a host on screen to writing and all of that. And we have a sisterhood mostly. Like we have so much fun together because there's more of us, since then. And I'm just so happy that all of us, we have our after shows. We talk about all of the shows, in wrestling with WWE, AEW, Impact, Women's Wrestling Army, and definitely WoW Superheroes. Like, I'm so proud of the work that we do because there are some places that don't necessarily cover a couple of shows at a time, like Women's Wrestling Army or like WoW Superheroes. And we do it on such a consistent basis that we've built a rapport and a relationship with some of these promotions. And I'm so proud of that. Like, I love doing that, for these stars that deserve, the notoriety and deserve people yelling about them, talking about them, and loving on them. They deserve that. Just like Amber, she deserves that. And Amber ties in with my commentary story. Like, she was on the Belladonna division show. The second show I commentated for that all-female wrestling promotion that's based in Gaston, Alabama, which is 3 hours away from Birmingham. So shout out to Casey Dillon and Veronica Fairchild. They are legends in Alabama wrestling as well. They started that promotion and I reached out to them, just for the idea of trying commentary. I had never done it before, only listened to commentary my whole life. But I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, you know what? If I'm doing this podcast and if I'm talking about all the wrestling that's happening and what I see in a animated way, then maybe I should try commentary. And they wanted me from listening to maybe 45 seconds of my podcast trailer. And I was just like, okay, cool.
That
So
trailer is something else.
And thank you. And it's just like they wanted me from then. And so with our second show, Amber was on the card and I had her on my podcast first. And
Mm-hmm.
then she came to the show and I just asked, for whatever information she wanted me to give, while I'm on commentary to put her over during her match. And she was so talented and she was so easy to work with. And, since we had talked to each other before, it was just easy to work with her. And she was just very wonderful to work with. So seeing her and rooting for her from when she was on my podcast to seeing her on the show and then even seeing her on NXT Halloween Havoc,
Mm-hmm.
backstage, and then seeing her on WoW was just an amazing journey. So she was easy to root for and just easy to love in that way. So and easy to call for too, because it's just like, man, she's just so incredible. She has what it takes. So when I saw her on WoW, I was just so excited for her. I was just like, yes, it's her. I was just so excited. So I'm so happy that, she liked how I put her over on commentary and speaking about her on Twitter wasn't hard at all. Just like speaking about WoW isn't hard because women's wrestling is my pride and joy. Like that's my deep, deep love. So I love it. Like I just love every inch of it. And I love being there for her in that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like I said, I'm a fan. I can't even wait till we get you back on the wrestling realm. And because I know it's gonna be a lot more shenanigans than it was the last time.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but when you look back at your career so far, and we know before a matter of time, you're gonna be calling WrestleMania. I
Oh.
truthfully believe that. Um, But so far, when did you have your breaking through the glass moment? That moment when you knew this is what you were supposed to be doing, or you're doing it well and you're living in your purpose.
Well, I would say it's two moments. The first moment that I felt like I was, walking in my purpose was definitely when I was commentating for the first Belladonna show. And my partner, the funeral director, Scott Resner, actually had to get up from the table during a 6-woman tag team match that we had. And Jazz was in it. This was during her retirement tour.
Mm-hmm.
And she was, I believe, grabbing a chair because she was tagging with the Woad. And, she was grabbing it for a chair. And then Scott got up from the table from commentating with me to help her out. And I had to call the action myself. And I had
Wow.
never done that before. And I was just doing the best that I could, just going off of what I saw and just calling it on my own. And it was so scary, but then at the same time, it was so exhilarating to actually carry that on my own for maybe 10 or 15 minutes.
Okay.
um,
Okay.
like maybe 10 or 15 minutes, like it's a blur now. But
Mm-hmm.
either way, like to be able to do that, and it was my first time and I had practiced, of course, before. I was just okay, 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 okay. And then after it was all over, I felt really good about myself. It was, yeah, that was great. And then the second time, I will say I knew when I was walking in my purpose and I was breaking through a glass ceiling was when I was sitting up there with Trish, Lita, and Mickie because, I had met them the day before in the meet and greets, and I had met Mickie James before at NWA Empower Weekend and interviewed with her before with Women's Wrestling Talk. And, they don't have to remember you, because they, meet so many different people.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that I went up there for that panel to listen to what they had to say and I had a question for them, and Trish pointed me out because I had on my podcast t-shirt and she said, "And you have a wrestling podcast," after I introduced myself. And the guy who was moderating the event asked me to, go up there, introduce myself the way that I would if I was hosting a show and give my credentials and let me sit up there with them and ask them one question. And they actually thought it was a really good question because I asked them what was the best advice that they had gotten when they started in their careers.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and the fact that they answered it and they were receptive to it really made me feel like, okay, this is good because, like I said earlier, these are women that I admire. These are women that I watched on television when the women were only getting a few minutes at a time. And the fact that I'm sitting here and I'm able to answer a question and they liked the question and answered it and then asked the question back at me was just incredible. Like, excuse me, like, what?
And people
Like,
love you, Stephanie. Like people love you. And I saw it. Like I saw how people gravitated towards you during Black Wrestlfest and at the after party. Like we all rooting for you. You know what I mean? And because you're a loud supporter as well. You support everybody. You want to see everybody succeed. And we always hear about the bad people in wrestling, right? And it's just life. Do something good for somebody, they tell 10 people. Do something bad, they tell 100 people. But like you're one of those people, like for you to put other people on your platform and say, hey, let's do a collab show for Black History Month. Like you don't have to do stuff like that. And this is why you're gonna go so far in this business. And this is the reason why like we're gonna root for you and support you.
thank you so much. And that means a whole lot because my mission when I started the Hardy Wrestling Podcast was to be a chill, positive, and passionate space. Because, of
Mm-hmm.
course, you're going to get the chill part because, when I started my show, I had like chill R&B music playing in the background because
Yeah.
that's my favorite genre outside of gospel and Disney music. So I was just like, okay, let's just have a chill environment right here.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be positive because I just love to talk about all the things I love about wrestling because I'm gonna always love wrestling. So I would much rather talk about all the things that I love about it as opposed to talk about and rag on all the things that I hate.
Mm-hmm.
And if I do talk about something I don't like, I'll just, talk about it, but then I'll move on from it and just not, rag against it for so long. And then it's going to be passionate because when you love who you love in wrestling, you're rooting for them. You want to actively say that and you want them to succeed and you're going to put that out there and be honest about it. So
Exactly.
so as long as I'm doing that with my platform and just being the best that I can be, in whatever it is that I'm doing in wrestling, whether it's hosting, being a panelist, being a commentator, or even a wrestling theme singer or whatever else, I find that I feel fulfilled and hopefully, it'll fulfill others as well. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Before we get out of here, let the people know where they can find you and where they can find the Hardy Wrestling Podcast.
well, first of all, thank you so much for having me again. And you can find and follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy. And you can listen to the Hardy Wrestling Podcast on basically everywhere you get your audio stuff. That's iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever else you listen to audio. And you can subscribe to the YouTube channel, which is the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. And the logo is pink and purple and it's in the shape of a wrestling ring and it has HWP in the middle and it has Hardy Wrestling Podcast on the bottom. So you can find that and just subscribe to the channel and just continue to support and follow me, as I go on this wrestling journey. Like it's been a wild ride. It's been a wild couple of 3 years, but hopefully, we'll be, have more and more to do. So yeah, that's where you can
Absolutely.
find me. Oh, and you can
Absolutely.
find me on Women's Wrestling Talk too, the number one women's wrestling show on the planet.
Oh, and also Stephanie is also part of the For Your Wear family. So the same place you can get a Breaking Through Glass Ceilings t-shirt, you can get some Hardy Wrestling merch, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
you
know you
can
got the
buy.
Alabama wrestling shirts, but
Yes. Yes, you can buy an Alabama wrestling shirt on foryourwear.com/Hardy Wrestling Podcast. And it's in the shape of the state of Alabama, which is where I'm from. And it's got the likes of Sensational Sherry, Paul Bearer, Kayla Braxton, and also Deborah, who you may or may not know are all from Alabama. So if you want to rock a really interesting shirt, buy that t-shirt. It's available in all sizes and it's available in red and black. So yeah.
make sure y'all support Stephanie, ladies and gentlemen. Stephanie, I appreciate you taking the time out, your busy schedule to come on here. I'm really excited for everybody to hear this conversation because I know that they can definitely get a lot out of it. Ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it for this week's episode of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. Remember, do not let anyone place a ceiling above your success. So long, everyone. Thank you for listening to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. You can support this podcast by going on foryourwear.com. Go to personalities and see Brian H. Waters. There you can get Breaking Through Glass Ceilings t-shirt or a hoodie, as well as a No Ceilings Above Success t-shirt. Go to foryourwear.com. Make sure you also check out some of the other podcasters and professional wrestlers as well.